Stars shining bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper, I love you. Birds singing in the sycamore tree. Dream a little dream of me. Welcome, kindreds. It's Jessica, the Story Witch, and today I wanted to talk to you about a practice that I've been doing for the last 5 years now, which is choosing, instead of having New Year's resolutions, it is something which I find a lot more powerful and a lot more, just gives you a lot more focus, and that is choosing a word of the year. I hope you enjoy. So first up, I guess talking a little bit about resolutions in general and why I have personally found that although they can be kind of helpful, they also can sometimes look a lot like a list of shoulds, and rather than positive resolutions. I know some people do make positive resolutions about bringing in change rather than things they want to get rid of and get out of their lives. But personally for me, I still found that having a kind of like list of things which I was working on wasn't as effective as having a single word which totally encapsulated everything that I will be working towards in that particular year. And as we know as magical witchy people, that words are super important. And by finding the one magic word for the year, that in itself is making it so magic. So if that is appealing to you and you think, yeah, I want to have a word for the year rather than resolutions, or as well as resolutions, you don't have to stop doing your normal resolution practice. Or if you've got something different that you do, I'd love to hear about that. So yeah, let me know down below in the comments if you do, either if you do word of the year practice, or if you have resolutions, or if you've got something completely different. I'd love to hear about that. I love to try. A lot, I think, of walking a magical path or a witchy path is a lot about, well, not just a lot about, I think it is all about ourselves improving and growing. And so any practices which are part of that, I love to know about those. So if you have them, then let me know. I want to know. Okay, so word of the year. I have written a blog post about this as well. I wrote it a few years ago, and I've been recently moving everything over to my new blog, and that is one of the posts that I have moved over and updated a little bit, so I'll link that down below as well. But let's talk about how you choose a word of the year. So I guess most of you guys watching here will already have a favourite kind of divination method, and if you have something that resonates with you, then that's probably going to be your best bet for finding your word of the year. My favourite way of doing it, I really like these cards. These are Womanrunes, and I'll link about these down below as well. These are Womanrunes. I believe she was a Native American woman called Shekini Mountain Water, who actually channeled these runes in the 70s, I think. I'll have to check up on the history of it, but I know about them because of somebody called Molly Reamer, who I came across when I was researching people who are giving good information in the red tent movement, because I facilitate the red tent in my local area. So I came across her, and on her site they were these runes, and I've worked with the runes before, and there's something so awesome about the way word and image is just like completely together in runes. Generally, they're so simple and yet so powerful. I think I love that sort of power and simplicity is a lot about how I like to do things. So runes do really appeal, but these specific runes are amazing. Okay, I'll show you a couple. So here's the crescent moon. Rune of Divination Ritual. I hope you can see that. Can you see that? Rune of Divination Ritual, Door to Unconscious. I think I'm supposed to do this. I'm new at this filming thing, guys. I hope that it's not too off-putting. The Wand. Rune of Blessing, Making Sacred, Honouring, Calling In. The Labyrinth. Rune of Will, Having Your Own Way. The Box, this is a good one. just a square. Can't get much more simple than that. Rune of boundaries, limitation, stability, lessons. So yeah, so there's 40 of these runes, and they are really, really good. And so if I was going to use these for a word of the year practice, I would just, you know, as you would, I just center, ground, you know, get in sacred space if you've got a good place, which you always use for doing divination work. And then just choose a rune. And there's a really cool book which comes with these, which I haven't got to hand now. I'll go and get it. I'll be right back. I'm back. And yes, this is the book. So it's quite, you know, it's quite a decent sized book. There are, you know, 130 pages. It's not small print, but it does give you a really good, she writes in such a lovely lyrical way, Molly, that she, there's a lot of meaning in the words, even when there's not loads of words. And I also picked up, when I went to grab that, I noticed a couple of other things which you can also buy from her. This is not a sponsored post in any way. I just think that she's really awesome, and she's really real, you know, particularly if feminist spirituality is something that appeals to you. Her site and her writings, loads of which are completely free. She does have paid offerings as well, but most of her stuff is free. So yeah, go and check her out. These are a couple of the other things that I've got of hers. Probably got too many. Oh, and this actually as well. Yeah, she makes, her and her husband, and I think kind of her family too, it's like kind of a family business, make goddesses and gods they do now as well. So this is Persephone. How gorgeous is that? Yeah. So if that's something that interests you, I'll also link that down below. Oracle cards are also really good. These I quite like. Oracle cards generally I don't use as much. Tarot is something that I use a lot, and it's part of my paid employment. So my paid self-employment, I should say. Although maybe goddesses employ me. Well, yeah, okay. So Oracle cards, yeah, you can use them. I find sometimes the more simple the message, the easier. So you could do like a whole tarot spread, and I do Wheel of the Year tarot spreads, which I lay out 12 cards around the circle for the upcoming year. So that is a really good one for identifying kind of bigger themes and stuff for the year. So that is in a really good way as well. So if you did want to use a more kind of more informative, I don't know, sometimes one card readings are super informative, you know. It's just because it's one card doesn't mean that it is brief, or there's so much to dive into, you know. So I'm just giving you some ideas so that you find which way works for you. And if you do find a really good way of doing it, then let me know too. I'm going to cover ways as well which don't use anything you have to buy, okay? So I'll get onto that. So yeah, goddess, I used to use these Doreen virtue cards, and I still do. I like them. I do. I like a lot of the imagery on the cards. Some of the things that are written in the book are a little bit, I think a little bit culturally insensitive sometimes, and a little bit, we're walking down that path of cultural appropriation a bit there, okay? And that's something I'll probably talk about in a different video as well. But since all that kind of hoo-ha about Doreen and her going off on her kind of God and Jesus, she's come out as a Christian, which I don't know, you know, I always kind of thought she was a Christian, so it wasn't really that much of a shock for me. I've seen some really cool videos of people talking about this, and yeah, I know people were cross because for lots of really valid reasons, and it did make me feel a little bit of a disconnect with her cards when she was talking that we shouldn't use the cards, and she was talking about it because she felt that we as humans shouldn't be using these tools to find, you know, to glean wisdom. But that blew my mind a little bit, because like when we're using, well, my personal feeling is that when I'm using divination tools, whatever tools they are, that it is, we're not making it up, we are receiving that information from somewhere. And so if we weren't supposed to do that, we wouldn't be able to do it. So yeah, I found that a bit weird anyway, but she's kind of recommending that you don't use her stuff, and she's going to be having her name taken off all the stuff, which, yeah, So yeah, I used to use these, and I still do. I've got her angel tarot cards, not her angel cards, which I don't really like very much, but I've got her angel tarot cards, which I love, and I find them really really accurate when you're doing readings with them. But I'm not going to stop using them, even if she'd like me to. But yeah, there's the goddess. So what I did, I use it as an excuse to treat myself to a new goddess oracle deck, and I bought this one. Let me show you the box. Yeah, I can grab it. I've been using it, so it's kind of out and not fully thing. So yeah, I bought this one, which is by Amy Sophia Marashinsky and illustrated by Harana Janto. It tells you a little bit about those people there, and the book. And the book just blew my mind, actually. The cards are lovely. I'd seen images of the cards, so I knew what I was going to be getting, and they are really, really lovely. It's Lakshmi. Okay, so the artwork is really beautiful and quite different. So like some of the cards, they're kind of done in the style of the tradition that the goddess is from, which that's so cool, isn't it? So, you know, like if you get goddesses from the Hindu pantheon, then they're drawn in that kind of way that you kind of expect that iconography to be. And then when you get goddesses from the Celtic tradition, they're also drawn in quite a different way, which I thought that was really cool, and I'm really enjoying using these cards. The book, on each one, they have ritual suggestions. So every time, if you take a card, they have like a ritual suggestion about what you can do to really connect with these cards and what the wisdom in that card is. So much really, really good information in here. I'm really happy that I bought this set. Like I said, I don't own many oracle decks. I think I've only got 2 or 4, I think, actually, other decks. But, you know, streamline, guys. Anyway, I'm babbling again now. I'll probably edit this bit out. This wasn't supposed to be a goddess deck video. Let's get back to the word of the year. And you can do this without runes anyway, is literally getting some paper and just ideally eyes closed, get centered, and just free write anything, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Just write whatever comes out, and often your word will come out. And that is a really cool thing to happen. That's what happened this year for me, and it's happened a couple of years ago as well, and that was really cool. And you can also do that with drawing, so you can kind of do intuitive drawing, and then kind of look at your drawing and see if you can make out any symbols or something that is there that is trying to the universe wants you to know what your word is. So you can use things like that. You can use you could use crystals. You could, if you've got quite a few crystals, you can just kind of select one, then look really deeply into the properties of that crystal and think, right, what is this telling me? What is this crystal taking me on my journey for this year? So an example would probably be helpful. So if you let's do rose quartz, because everybody knows about rose quartz. So if you chose rose quartz, the obvious word that pops into your head is obviously going to be love, you know, straight away. But then there's also lots of other things as well, like healing, sensuality. It could be to do with, it could be rose quartz as well. I do use it for like a sexual healing as well. So it could be to do with sex. It could be to do with lots of things. So, you know, so just because it's a simple one thing, heads up, dive deeper into it. You could even use like tea bags, you know, go and browse somewhere where they've got lots of different ones and choose something, and then look at what the contents of those tea bags are trying to tell you. You know, look out for it, be open to your words appearing for you, and it will appear. So I realised when I was watching this back that I didn't go into probably enough helpful detail about how you find the word from using the divination method. Perhaps it is kind of obvious. I hope that people will understand what I mean, but I just wanted to kind of clarify it a little bit. So say you had used the Womanrunes and you found the rune that really spoke to you. So Like say you found the yoni was the one I picked out. Already there are some words just with the card, so obviously yoni and the things that are associated with that. You might be talking about female sexuality. Those basically you gather the themes, okay? So once you've got the heads up, you start gathering the themes. So I would write down yoni, I draw the picture. I would write down making, creativity, fertility, wealth, pleasure, birth. That would be all of the things off the card. Then I would also look into the book. So the same as if you were doing it with the goddess card too. I would write down anything that came to mind immediately from looking at the card, and then I would get the book out and I would look up for the book. So for yoni, it's a rune of creation. I'd probably write that down too. Creation, creativity. The womb of all possibility, womb, and all changes. I'd be writing all of these things down as I go along. Cauldron of life, doorway, initiation, birth, rebirth, receptive, open, embracing. These words that are here, you will then draw those words out, and some of them will really grab you, and they're the ones to write down, you know. So that's how I would do it. The same if you were doing it with the goddess oracle. So as you're reading, there would be things that you would come out, and then you can then further dive into those, especially with the goddesses. So if you'd chosen a particular goddess, you'd written down the words from the book, then jump on the internet or jump into a different book and find out more and see which words jump out from there, and then you'll end up with like a massive load of words, and like take a highlighter or something, or just black out the ones that don't resonate for you, and you can narrow it down. When you think you've got it, write it down somewhere, and then try and kind of not think about it for a little while. And if sometimes what that does is it gives your unconscious time to kind of find something, like you fine tune it a little bit. So sometimes you'll get a word which you sort of think is right, and then it's like, oh, it's right, but it's not quite right, and you just need a little bit more time to kind of fine tune it. Also, sometimes you'll be given your word of the year and you won't like it. I talk about this in the blog post. I had a word a couple of years ago now, which was build, you know. It's like, how boring is that? It's like, you know, one brick. And I was really resistant to that. I didn't want that to be my word of the year. I wanted something powerful, something more exciting. But actually that word was exactly what I needed. So if you're finding that a word is popping up for you but you're resisting it, feel into that and really kind of work out, is this just because I am rejecting this word, or is it resistance because it's boring or it's hard, you know? So that's something to think about too. My word for next year is emerge, which is why I'm making these videos. And it's alright, so it's kind of kicked in already. Some people ask about when's the sort of ideal time for making a word of the year, and there isn't really, there's no right answer to that. You can choose it. It chooses you really, but you can invoke it at any point of the year. Personally, what I find happens usually is after the last harvests are all kind of gathered in, that is when my word starts to emerge. So see what works for you. So once you've got your word of the year, what I like to do with it is to write it down somewhere on a, you can write it in your grimoire, or in, it's nice to kind of brainstorm it a little bit first. So sometimes I like just on a nice big sheet of paper and stick it in the middle, and you can just write whatever is associated with it with you. And this is where having a word which is kind of multifaceted is more I shouldn't say that, because obviously some people do have words which are very straightforward nouns and that is what they need, but sometimes words which have got more to them, like my friend, the one who did the cool intro and outro for me for these videos, her word for this year was root, and that was, you know, root is a verb, it's a noun, it can also be a slightly different spelling, but like a journey. There's so much there. So really explore your word. My word for 2017 was present, is present, I guess, because I am still present. And I loved about that it's a present, it's here, it's now, but also present, it's a gift. And this year has been a lot of gifts, and has felt like a gift this year. And also present, you know, so that the way that it made me think a lot about how I present to other people, and that has dovetailed nicely, I think, into Emerge for 2018. Other cool things you can do with your word of the year is to journal about it, make art around it. You could do a vision board or dream board of it. Whatever, you know, whatever helps you to think about something and to really deeply connect with something, do that. Meditate with it. I like to have a kind of like physical, like a tangible thing with it on. And next year I think I'm going to have a copper bracelet with it stamped out, with Emerge stamped out on it. So I haven't bought that yet, but I'm really thinking that is something I'm going to do. So it's like right there. I've been looking around on Etsy. If you guys know somebody you'd recommend to do that sort of thing, then let me know. I did think about getting it on a pendant, but I'm thinking I really like the idea of the bracelet, and so I'm going to look into that, way to get that done. Yeah, so just be creative with it. How wonderful to have something, and that is where I find it differs as well from resolutions, in that you can be really creative with it and take it into whole new places, and it does really focus you and your journey for that year. So if you kind of get off the path a little bit and things aren't going as you would hope, just reconnecting with that word can be really, really powerful. I think that's everything that I wanted to say about a word of the year practice. If you do have any questions about it, then just let me know down below, and I'll be hanging around in the comments to help anybody who wants to know about this practice even more. Or like I say, if you've got a different practice which works really well for you for focusing your intentions for the year, then let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for those. Warmest blessings, guys. I'll see you soon.